swinging 60s, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones were top of the pops. Jim Clark and Lotus were scorching to Grand Prix win after Grand Prix win. And on the telly, Diana Rigg wore black leather and drove a Lotus Elan. It was the small sports car of that decade. Light, responsive and a delight to drive. It was the epitome of Colin Chapman's design creed.
Sadly, its successor some 25 years later was not. Front-wheel drive with a Far Eastern turbocharged engine, it had superb road holding, but it just wasn't any fun. It lacked the driver involvement of the older car, that responsive steering, that live wire feedback to put a smile on your face. But now there's a new Lotus that will do just that. The Lotus Elise. The Elise was named after the granddaughter of Romano Artioli, chairman of the Bugatti Group, which owns Lotus, and fits neatly into the E-theme of all Lotus names from the first Elite to the Esprit. Both Lotus and Bugatti have seen hard times lately, and money to develop the new sports car and the V8 version of the ageing Esprit was hard to find. The company has a lot resting on this little roadster, and on looks alone, I think they're on to a winner. Even standing still, the Elise is a stunner. Styled in-house by designer Julian Thompson, it's easy to spot cues from other sports cars in amongst its curves. The grille from the Lotus Elite. The vents from the GT40. Side intakes that could have been penned by Bertoni. The whole shape is so much tauter than the flabby MGF. Getting in requires a bit more athleticism than most. And once you drop into the slither of leather that they call a driving seat, you realise just how Spartan the interior is. There's no carpets, no electric windows, and no radio cassette. Which is probably a good thing because there's nowhere to put your cassettes. Indeed, the interior is so Spartan that the passenger seat doesn't even move, and the only gesture towards any sort of luxury is this little pump-up lumbar support. Now, if it's not enough that this Elise looks sensational, how about the fact that it drives sensationally? The ride is relatively soft by small sports car standards, which is good for comfort, but can be bad for the handling. Yet this Elise is almost perfect. Drains and potholes cause the suspension to clonk and rattle. You feel the bumps through the seat of your pants, but you don't feel them through the steering. And it's the weight, feel and responsiveness of this steering that gives such pleasure. If you point the Elise into a corner, it goes where you want it to go. Even the cable-operated gear change provides satisfying movements, unless you try to get fifth gear. But then, if you're trying to get fifth gear, you're not having fun. Unlike every Lotus since that original Elan, the Elise doesn't have a backbone chassis underneath its fiberglass bodywork. Instead, it's got a space frame fabricated from extruded anodized aluminium bonded together with a special epoxy adhesive, all built and supplied by the Danish Hydro Aluminium Company. All up, the car weighs only about 700 kilograms, so even the meagre 118 horsepower supplied by the mid-mounted Rover K-Series engine is enough to get you from 0 to 60 in 5.5 seconds. The driving position is perfect, the instrumentation simple and effective. For me though, it is a shame that the interior specification is so minimalistic. Oh yes. And the fact that the Elise has got a hood from hell. The changing North Yorkshire weather gave us plenty of opportunity to curse the Elise's hood. It's as if the designers couldn't decide which kind of fastenings to use, so they used them all. Once on, the hood doesn't spoil the car's lines, but by the time you've got it up, the sun has probably come out again. Allowing us to look at some of the Elise's cleverer features, like a nose which acts as a spoiler with air ducted from the grille through the radiator and out of the two vents in the bonnet. The suspension is wishbones all round with some very trick aluminium disc brakes at each corner. The whole of the bottom of the car is flat and there's a diffuser at the back which Lotus say adds 15 kilos of downforce. Time to put racing engineering on a race track.
Of course, you really need to get onto a private track to push the Elise right to its limits. And there's none more demanding in Britain than this Croft circuit near Darlington. Only now can I really push the Elise on into the corners. And that wonderfully responsive steering now comes even more alive. And I can feel the body roll. The soft suspension allows quite a bit of initial roll, but then the car takes a set and responds beautifully. Unlike the more recent Elan, which was such a disappointment because it cornered as if on rails, this little Elise can be quite frisky.
The Elise has mild understeer as a basic setup, but push the car into a corner quickly or lift off suddenly in the middle of a bend, then there is oversteer aplenty to play with. It's not a sudden breakaway, more a progressive slide to be enjoyed rather than feared. Lotus intend to produce about 1,000 Elises a year, and if you pay your £20,000 now, you might just get your Elise by next September. If some foul fate does befall Lotus, it won't be the fault of this fabulous little car. Hello, Patsy. Yeah, look, I think I might have found the perfect small sports car. No, not the MGF. That's too bland for me. No, it's the Lotus Elise. The best looking, best handling small sports car ever. Anyway, look, I'm just calling to say the traffic around here is simply awful. So it looks like I'm going to be late. Couple of days?